To the women who continue to push boundaries and reclaim their rightful place in the world, we see you. It is through your determination and sheer strength that today we celebrate your queendom. I am Pulem Mulibati. This is Stories Untold. Welcome to the show. Today we celebrate award-winning playwright, poet, and newly appointed artistic director at the Sibikwa Art Center. While many know her for her provocative art pieces, Napo is a powerhouse who is determined to change the face of the arts in South Africa. This is a much more intimate look into her life.
Dumelang, lebitso la ka ke Napo Mashiane. I am a theater maker, a playwright, a stage director, ke modi wa dithotokiso, bareri di poets. I'm a translator, but more than anything, I'm a lover of African women's stories and a very proud rainbow mother.
Napo Mashiane is a mother of 2 boys, a true reflection of a woman. Her love for storytelling led her to a path of being a student of life. Growing up in the mountains, her story embodies that of a pure, diverse African woman.
So Napo Mashiane ke ngwanana Mosotho, typical Mosotho girl, loud, opinionated, dramatic. But then it was during the 70s. My dad being a teacher and with Kosoweto not schools being operational, moved back to the Free State, Ditabe. Grew up so enticed by, traditional Sesotho games, everything to do with riddles, rain-making games, and somehow started writing. It felt like there was a voice inside me. It was okay for me to be all this bubbly person, papa, but there was also something about, just this view and the silence, and how I would always, grab a pen and paper and started expressing my sadness or my happiness or questions I had about life, especially when I came of age with, a girl who has a big bum, who has been teased, or a girl who came from a middle-class family and ended up finding herself around people who were, from families that really were much more, financially good. My father, being a teacher as well, made sure there's abundance of African literature. So if I was not writing, I would just read Things Fall Apart, by Chunya Chebe, or The Devil's Advocate, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, or with my mom who loved Sesotho language, reading poems, Zandate Mapala, or, Mupeme, all these amazing Sotho classical novels, so that was just like my world.
Her love for storytelling and writing grew even more when she moved to Johannesburg. Her curiosity became awakened.
The essence of storytelling. I have amazing 6 big, huge, loud aunts. They loved singing when they cooked. They loved sharing jokes and gossip. They would just gossip, and hence my company's Village Gossip. And something about that made me feel like there are stories that find it hard to leave our kitchen tables, or as in Kokwakwa, when we're sitting around the fire. There's stories that find it hard to leave those areas. My grandmother didn't see a day in a formal school, but she was a well of wisdom and language, proverbs, idioms, you name it, riddles, So for me, it was just like, how do I not just witness this alone, but share it with the world? But I didn't know that people could make a living as writers or storytellers. And something about me being that bubbly child and always finding myself in these spaces in Hillbrow, got me to ended up with some of these artists taking me to the Market Theatre. And one of those artists, Ki Faqa Kulu, who was part of Sarafina, and by then Faqa, I think, was preparing himself to go for Lion King in New York. So Faqa Kulu made me, introduced me to James Ngobo, the late Silo Dlamini, and other artists. And everybody's like, you know, it's like, no, as a neighbor from Deflete, right? And then I remember James Ngobo, Silo Dlamini saying, hey, we're gonna watch a play. Faqa, are you coming in? Faqa was like, no, I'm chilling out. Coco Fifi, opposite Market Theatre there. You know, it was a nice spot there. And Faqa was like, but I think Napo should go watch. Got into the theatre. Who's on stage? Dr. John Gunn and Peter Brooks. So there's like a white man and a black man doing a reading and a bit of performance. The theatre is packed. The main stage of Market, main theatre, Market Theatre, it's and there's like black, Indian, colored, white, you know, people who dance. I'm like, what is this? And I remember asking Siloli James, and then James was like, it's theatre, my dear. Oh, so actually people can get paid to be loud. People can get paid to read and tell a story. And people can listen quietly and also like applaud them. And then Siloli James, they were like, he is. I was like, I think that's me. Literally, I was just like, you know, that's like those turning points in life. I was like, oh my God, this is me. I've done the sketch, I've danced Kokerekeng, I've done, Easter, plays, but I just didn't know that people could make a living out of it. And now I know all these great artists. So clearly, manai, kuna something. So that was the beginning of my artistic life, and it saw me going to FUBA, School of Dramatic Arts, founded by the late Ntate Sipos Pamela. When I got to FUBA, we were being taught so much about African theatre history, which I'm one of the only few people in the world now teaching it, but also we're learning a lot about Black consciousness. We were studying Zakes Mda, we were studying James Mutoba, we were studying Fatima Dike, we were studying I was also introduced then to Gunam Mhlophe and also Phyllis Kloss, who is, the co-founder, and Brasmol Ndaba, who's just across here. I was introduced to all these legends. The Black women voices were just, they were actors. They were just actresses. So for me, it sort of triggered something but why am I not seeing a Black woman as a director? Why am I not seeing or hearing about a Black woman as a playwright, or as a producer? Yes, I hear about Athol Fugard, I hear about Bunny Simon, I hear all these people. The only Black women that I see are mostly performing. And actually, Fatima Dike, I got introduced to her when I started doing my own research later on. But there was so many Konichume, who's one of my amazing sisters, somebody who took me under, her arm. But for me, it was just why are we not directors? And then also when you look at the history of South African history protest theatre, it's always from a perspective of man.
Now familiar with the world of theatre, Napo started building and writing herself as the next legendary woman.
While there is a slight shift of representation of women in the arts, very few hold seats in positions of power. Napo Mashiane shares her own experience being in a seat of power in one of the theatres in South Africa and what that means to women in the arts.
Napo Mashiane is a talkative woman like a lot of our mothers, sisters, and even aunts. But she took talking, writing, and storytelling to a whole new level when she started researching on female legends.
I was the first one go FUBA as a female director. Final year, I took directing as one of my specialties, and I directed a piece, and I started getting so much involved in how we structure stories, and got a lot of affirmation as well. I mean, it wasn't just by my own doing, but I got a lot of affirmation from lectures, Hlanga Bezivundla, so many lectures were like, you are such an amazing writer, have you ever considered, doing it professionally?
Mpho Molepo is a long-time friend of Napo's, meeting when they were both starting in the arts industry. 20 years later, Napo and Mpho complement each other.
But when Napo started in the industry, she was more on the background. She was more of a technical person. She was a stage manager. But I guess over the years, she decided to take what is hers, you know, being able to occupy the front space. So we started just as colleagues, ordinary colleagues in the industry, and then we got closer to know each other. And then we shared a common friend between the two of us, and then we became much more close, and then we became friends. And I think this is 20 years later, I would say, that we've never lost contact. We've been colleagues, friends, we've been working together, we've been doing quite a lot of programs together, quite a lot of developmental work together. Our organizations support each other. She runs Village, and I run Alex Arts Academy. She's a beautiful soul. First, I think she's got a very powerful soul, because she's got a great aura around her, which for me is when people have that kind of a soul and an aura around them, they always project positivity, you know, which you can feel if you're next to them or you're with them. The energy changes in the room and the space and all of that, and I think for me that's her first strength.
Being friends with mostly male counterparts, Napo was the first female in the theatre industry to direct plays.
I did a lot of first. So from Fuba, then got into Feel a Sister, you know, spoken word. So we became the first female spoken word collective that changed the history of how people view spoken word performance. You know, you cannot talk about South African revolution and movement within the spoken word and not mention Feel a Sister, you know, and it was myself, you know, the late Maisha Jenkins, Lebo Mashile, and Ntsiki Mazwai. So we became, you know, that was my first, but also realizing that there are other stronger women that I can form alliances with. And past that, because of my looks and going to auditions and not being taken, I went back to, you know, to the only tool I have, which is pen and paper. I wrote my Bamish genetic deal with it, and it became this out of the world one-woman show, somebody talking about their insecurities and, you know, their body issues, but how also instead of people laughing at me, I laughed with them, and I was more in control of the narrative. And so I wrote the play and performed my life journey from Qwaqwa to Johannesburg, back to, you know, Qwaqwa, back to Johannesburg, and then to the world.
I think something that stands out is the continued passion to become a better person for me. When I was working for South African State Theatre as a business development manager some years ago, she also came to join State Theatre as an assistant artistic director. And we were almost working in the same space. Now, from being outside state institution to now working together in almost a state-owned institution.
Napo's career started becoming clear as she would be the first black female to explore a lot of firsts.
I got a chance to do one of the shows, a new song, which was a 2-year masterclass with the Royal Court in London. And then when I finished the play, I started fundraising for it. I got money for it. I went to my first home, Market Theatre, and I sat down with James and the team. I said, like, I've got a bit of funding. I need a lot of support. I would really love to do the show here. In the 39 years of Market Theatre, there's never been a black woman who's a producer, writer, and director on that stage. And then I became the first black woman, you know, to do that. And it was just like, oh my word, okay, this is much more deep. Even when I did my master's then in creative writing, again, I was the first person to do 2 theses because I'm a playwright and a poet at Rhodes, right? And then I couldn't choose, You know, like it's so hard, like when I'm writing, I can like a play, there's poetry in it, because I'm a storyteller. And then when I write a poem, there's an element of drama or a dialogue, or somebody can breathe life into it. So I just remember one of my supervisors, because actually I had been recruited by Rhodes, so they need somebody who is a practitioner, but also who can enter and be within academic space and be able to be a balance of both. If anything, somebody who could stand to critique, you know, both theatrics of African, you know, storytelling and poetry. So I did that. Yeah, so I was like the first, and I was like, I would never recommend anyone to do it. I was like, ah!
A thespian, a poet, and a mother, Napo Mashiane has shared parts of her life through her performances, but one role she holds very close to her heart is that of a mother to her 2 boys. Right now, we go off stage as she shares parts of her life as a mother.
Lesedi Botlhale Mashiane is Napo's firstborn son. Queer and proud, Lesedi and his mother bagged Rainbow Mother of the Year at last year's Further Awards, an award specially designed for her. Addressing issues of sexuality, Napo embraces being a rainbow parent. Now they're currently preparing for a 2-man show.
My name is Botlhale Lesedi Mashiane. I am Napo Mashiane's firstborn and the rightful heir to the Mashiane dynasty.
Lesedi, who's that?
He's an icon. Oh yes, a true thespian. He's amazing.
Oh, Lesedi, yes, I remember.
All of my friends and like everyone loved my mom. Genuinely, like when I go to school, it's like, oh my gosh, that's your mom. She's so pretty. Is she really your mom? And I'm like, why are you shocked? I'm also amazing. Like it should be like, but yeah, everyone was always just like, they always loved her and everything. She was very loud. She just adored. We're very similar in the sense of a people's person and everything. And then growing up, she was an amazing mom. She was very accepting.
Napo says her son's coming out taught her to be a student of life.
I started noticing that my son might be queer. I started preparing myself, but also started preparing myself through the community that I'm part of, that it's gonna happen one day. I'm not gonna be the one imposing myself on him. I'm gonna wait for him to tell me. But, you know, Dee, who's the godmother and one of my right hands in life, she said, the day he comes out, we know how dramatic you are. Before you call all of us, the first thing that you need to say and do is, I love you. And then after that, you can go and cry and call all of us, and then we'll come in. And that's exactly what happened. He wrote me a huge, long monologue about his sexuality. You know, Mom, you know, I kissed the boy and I'm not sick. I don't need a psychologist. I don't need therapy. And I was like, I've been waiting for this day for so long. He was 14. And then just something about that though as well, just for the first time allowed me to become a student of life.
She gave me like the best reaction a parent could ever give, because a lot of kids who are queer or like who are just queer, they're so afraid that once they tell their parents, something will change. Like I think that's like the biggest thing. They're like, I don't want anything to change. I'm so like comfortable and secure with the relationship that I have with my mom or my dad, and what will happen if, you know, I tell them, like, will they treat me differently? Will this become my life story?
He's teaching me so much in life about love, again, about diversity, but just that this one is of my womb. And I also knew that there's no way I can deny him for being who he is, because if I'm denying him, I'm denying myself. And I think that's the worst thing. I've never denied myself. So how can I deny part of my womb, part of my blood and my DNA?
Being true to herself made Napo to be loved even more by her close-knit friends.
There's something excellent and just so refreshing to see him living his true self, how he's so deep and very centralized and very focused and artistic like me. And hence, through conversation, through the first lockdown, when we were both at home, he was doing matric from National School of the Arts, I was home and jobless. We started chatting, and he was just affirming me about the contribution I've done in terms of voices of Black women in theater. And for me, and then through that conversation, it was just like, well, you are not a Black woman, but you are a queer, human being. I think it's all of us, our journeys, they choose us. I don't know what the future holds for you, but if I've done it for Black women, why wouldn't you do it for Black queer boys? And the kind of stories that, he'll come home and tell me about his friends not being able to come out or how they've been mistreated by their parents just hit home. And something in our conversation was like, well, okay, so how are we gonna do this? And then he said something to me very profound. He was like, Mom, do you know how hard it is? Like, as much as you've accepted me and you love me, one of the biggest challenges for any queer young person is even coming out to themselves. And that for me hit home. Like, oh, but I thought because I love you, you're showered by love and you're accepted. And he was like, no. One of the biggest struggles for me, I've always known this is who I am, but the challenge for me was coming out even to myself. And I had to constantly try to fit in and convince myself and have a conversation with myself until I couldn't deny myself. And something about what he said, and also like when we go to family events and we started talking about coming out and all that, and he was just like, I don't understand why my siblings and my cousins' siblings don't have to come out. Why do I always have to come out? No one asked, my other cousins to show, or who are straight, to show their, bring their girlfriend or their boyfriend or whatever thing. Why, nah, just because I'm the only one among the kids or the grandkids here, I have to come out. And during that conversation, I was like, well, perhaps you don't have to come out. Maybe I have to come out. And he was just like, yeah, you come out. So I've been coming out, hence the Rainbow Parent, of the year. The coming out of me ended up being a 2 theater piece that we are both, writing and, devising. It's going to be directed by Clive Matibe, who directed My Vagina Was Not Buried With Him. So I just did my one-woman show after 15 years. It was very, very successful, it's still running. It was just given that Clive Matibe is one of my closest friends, but also I'm an amazing director and also somebody, who is also understand the dynamics of queerness will come in and direct me and Buhlale, and also the whole community just waiting for the play. Everybody like Paul Muchachi, everybody's just like giving me, but also giving us their stories, a different perspective, but also an affirmation of the need also to change the South African theatre landscape. It will be amazing to see voices of Black queer, artists, being present within the kind of narrative and the future that we are all creating when we talk about South African or African theatre.
Now Lesedi says his mother is a true epitome of love and inspiration.
Well, she's very inspiring, I'm not gonna lie. She was like she came from nothing. Like, those success stories about people who actually really had to work really hard to get to where they are. Also, growing up, I've seen kind of the struggles and triumphs that she's had to overcome in everything. So it really is inspiring as a son, as someone young who wants to go into this industry as well. When it was the Feather Awards and she won Rainbow Parent of the Year and everything, I was like super proud. And she really deserves that recognition because it's actually not very easy for parents to accept their children the way they are, whether it comes to who they happen to fall in love with or just the things that they do or what they want to be when they grow up. So it's like, I'm so lucky that I have a mom who doesn't only accept me for who I am, but also supports me in what I want to do in the future.
Karen, being Napo's colleague at SABC Theatre, says Napo is intentional about her servanthood to women and the youth.
Through her individual kind of poetry work and work that she does with other women in development and empowerment, companies that she's started previously and now coming to SABC, I think that the stage and the platform is really set for her to take us further and to continue to be doing a lot of work around women, whether it is work that is focused on issues around women or work that is by or for women. I think that she's going to make an incredible contribution.
Oh, there's been so many first Mbokodo Award winner, under theater performance, and then you know, got my first SAFTA award, moving, you know, with the first drama series that I was part of writing, moving from being a theater writer to being a TV, you know, script writer. So there's just been so many firsts.
Her story will definitely be told as that of an inspiration and Imbogodo, a rock for many to rely on. Stories Untold salutes your openness to living and loving life as a mother, but most importantly, as a rainbow parent.
Her legacy should be remembered more on her passion to develop and to tell her own stories and stories of her own people, you know, the legacy of people who are just being truthful and realistic to themselves. I think Napo is more, for me, of that kind of a person.
I mean, I do think she should be in books because she'll inspire so many young girls, black girls. She'll inspire so many people who want to go into this industry. She'll inspire so many parents. She'll inspire so many queer children. She'll inspire like a lot of people.
When my name pops up, I want them to know that I lived and I am living my life to document untold stories of black women. I'm currently working on the story of Charlotte Maxeke, you know, from 1800, from, you know, 1700, who was part of the soloist. I mean, she was a soloist, but a part of a choristers who left South Africa in 1800 and taught UK and later on USA. Hence, she became the first black woman to graduate with BSc, right? I want to be remembered as somebody who valued her story and made sure that her story writes itself into history, unapologetically. So when my name pops out, it must be attached to every black woman's story that is untold, that is yet to be told, but also be a symbol of why her story has to be told.
While we continue to celebrate women in South Africa, we'd also like to thank you for trusting us with your stories. May you continue to be the greatest version of yourself and continue to inspire many women out there. Halala, bomme ba Afrika. Goodbye.